So, this episode is for any business owner, any freelancer, and anyone who hires a freelancer or service provider. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is this episode is for everybody if you own some type of business. And it's really important to understand your responsibilities when it comes to these 1099s because it can add up to massive penalties. It can also affect other business owners, and I'll explain why in this episode. So, let's talk about the 1099, which we know as the 1099 NEC, which stands for non employee compensation. There are actually a ton of different 1099s that are out there, which all report some type of income to the person who it's going to. So you may have received 1099Rs, 1099 MISC, and all of these other forms that you've seen. And the one that we're going to talk about today that affects business owners the most is the NEC. So when you receive these in the mail, just pay attention to what the form actually is telling you. I know it's tempting to just bundle these up, throw them in an envelope, and hand them to your accountant. But if you take a second to actually read them, you'll actually learn a lot about what's going on with your business, but also you'll be able to catch errors because these actually have a lot of errors in them. And I'll explain why and what to look for. So 1099s, how do they affect you? So you're either on one side of the transaction or another, or maybe you're on both for different reasons. So if you are, let's go with the easy side that you know. If you've received a 1099, if you've received a 1099 and you provided a service, then that means that at a minimum, you need to be reporting the income that you're receiving on those 1099s. Why? Number one, you're supposed to report all of your income anyway, which I hope you are. But why it's especially important is because the IRS will use the income that the 1099 say on them as the minimum that you should have earned on your tax return. So it's a dead giveaway that you're doing something screwy. If, let's say, you get 1099s for the amount of $100,000 and your tax return says, I only made $80,000 this year, the IRS can say, well, no, we already got reports that you've made more than that. So we know you're lying to us. And they don't like that very much. They'll send you a letter with interest and penalties for the amount that you owe. So it's best to really understand what these things say and what expectation you're setting. So that's number one. If you're receiving a 1099, you need to be reporting all of that income. And you need to be doing it anyway, whether or not you receive a 1099. But this is just the official reporting that goes to the IRS as well, so that they know what to expect from you. And let's break down the sender of the 1099, which many of you are in the position where this is the first time you're going to be sitting in that chair on the other side of the table. And you have to know your responsibilities here because unfortunately, nobody just shows up and gives you the instruction manual on this, and nobody really warns you about this. And even accountants, admittedly, don't communicate super proactively about this. They kind of expect you to know these deadlines and know this responsibility. So make sure you're taking notes if this is the first time you've heard any of this, and replay this episode if you need to, or as we're getting closer to the deadline. So let's talk about the bare bones of what you need to know. Every January 31st, you are required to send 1099s showing the amount that you paid to each contractor. And you have to send a 1099 to each contractor and to the IRS for each contractor. So if you hired Financial Solutions, you would send a 1099 to me and you send a 1099 to the IRS showing what you paid me. So 2 for each contractor. And you're required to do this by January 31st. And what you want to do is gear up for that by collecting your W-9s in advance, if possible. We talked about this on a prior episode from the fall, that you want to make sure you have those W-9s in hand because they will tell you the information you need to go fill out these forms. You cannot fill out these forms without the information about the contractor that only they give you through a W-9. So instead of scrambling on January 29th and 30th trying to get this information, please go get that from your contractors immediately if you don't have it. So what exactly are you supposed to do? So you're supposed to fill out these 1099 forms. You can have a bookkeeper or an accountant do it, no problem. Just make sure you have a plan going into this deadline of who's going to be doing it for you. Because admittedly, a lot of us are super busy and kind of have a cap on doing it for our clients and maybe can't fit you in. So make sure you have a plan of how you're going to file these. So here's the best way to be prepared. You want to have the W-9 for all your contractors, period. You also want to keep an accurate count of how much you've paid each contractor during the year in your books. That means that when you're doing your transactions in, let's say, QuickBooks, that you're also recording the payee of the transaction, the person or the counterparty. Why does that matter? Because if you go to report, you can actually report in QuickBooks, then what is it called? Transactions by vendor. And you can add up all of the amounts that you paid. Let's say you paid me. You can say, look it up by Shannon. How much did I pay Shannon this year? And you can see if you trip the threshold. So it's the fastest way to figure out who's eligible to receive 1099s based on dollar value. And I highly recommend that you do this and organize your books to do this going forward if you haven't, because it's going to save you so much time. So we talked about I know I need to file by January 31st. I know I need to do this. Who needs one? Who needs a 1099? So there are 4 criteria. So jot these down. Number 1, you need to have paid them over $600 during the year. Number 2, the payment method you use to pay them must be ACH, check, or cash, meaning not PayPal, not credit card, not third-party payment processor. Criteria 3, they cannot be a corporation. They cannot be a corporation. So again, $600 or more during the year, not through credit cards, PayPal, third party, not a corporation. And they would have to have provided a service to you during the year, So if you have met all those criteria, then you would owe a 1099 to that service provider. Okay. So again, you want to collect that W-9. It will tell you if they're a corporation or not. So that would rule that one out. And these criteria, by the way, have to be all present. They all have to be present for you to be able to file a 1099 for them. So here's an example. Let's say you pay me $2,000 during the year. I'm an S corporation. Do you need to send me a 1099? No, you don't. Why? I'm an S corporation. How do you know that? Because I gave you a W-9 that says I am. That is important for your records. Same deal. If you paid me, let's say I'm an LLC, and you paid me $3,000 during the year by PayPal. Do I need a 1099? No, not from you. Not from you. Because here's how it works with third-party processors. If you are collecting money, if the money is being paid through PayPal, Stripe, Square, electronic third-party payment processors, if that's how you're exchanging money, then that party is the one who will report the income on a 1099. So here's an example. Let's say a client purchases services from me for $5,000 via Stripe. What will happen, instead of the client giving me a 1099 for $5,000, Stripe will give me a 1099 for $10,000 or for $5,000. Stripe will give me the 1099. It's called a 1099K. K as in kangaroo. So what will happen is Stripe is now responsible for giving me my 1099 if I made money from them, through them. And the person who hired me does not have to provide that. So you as the business owner would not be required to issue a 1099 if you paid through PayPal, Stripe, Square, all of those. Okay. And what's going to happen, watch out, in 2022, if you're an online business owner, listen up, and you're collecting money through these payment processors. In 2022, they're all going to be keeping track of how much money you make through them. And they're going to send you a 1099K if you are making over $600. And here's the thing, up until 2022, the threshold has been $20,000 and 200 transactions. So only if you're making over 20K from these have you historically received these 1099Ks. Now, this is opening up to more people. So if you've never received a 1099K before, chances are you're going to receive one in 2022, or well, the 2022 cycle, meaning you'll get it in 2023. So keep an eye out for that. If you don't know what to expect when it comes to reporting, feel free to ask us. Happy to help. Now, again, keeping track of your bookkeeping through your bookkeeping system, keeping accurate records, you'll be able to get ahead of this stuff and know exactly what to expect. And also, let's bust a few myths while we're on it. It's really, really, really important that you understand that you're supposed to report all of your income, whether you got a 1099 or not. So therefore, getting a 1099 does not trigger you to report the income. You should be reporting it anyway. All of the 1099 does, from my perspective as an accountant, if I'm working with you, I look at the 1099s and I make sure that at least all of that was included in your books. At least you've reflected all of that income in your books, and we confirm. It's really not the only driver to trigger you to claim the income. And let's see, how do you actually file a 1099 is the question that I get a lot. Okay, Shannon, I know I have to file. I know I have this requirement. I know I have contractors who I'm going to have to issue them to. How do I actually do this? And how long does it take me? And what's involved here? It's actually ridiculously easy. You can go to different websites. I personally use eFile4Biz, and I'll include that link in the show notes. I use eFile4Biz. It costs roughly $5 to $10 per 1099 report, and they go electronically to the contractor, and they also go electronically to the IRS. So you're covered. So what you're going to do is go to those websites, file the reports, everyone gets what they need, and you're done. It's easy. And again, $5 to $10 per report. You can also have your bookkeeper or accountant help you. And usually if you have a bookkeeper, they'll help handle this for you. But here's a pro tip. Make sure you clarify that with them, because maybe you assume they're going to do this for you and they don't assume that they're going to do it for you. So this is kind of a last minute thing to spring on them in January while they're really busy closing out all your books to say, hey, and I also need you to do my 1099s. So just make sure that that's part of their responsibility, and that you understand how many are going to have to go out and work that out with your service providers, just to make sure that you're on the same page. So now, what if you didn't file, right? What if you're hearing about this for the first time and you're thinking, Shannon, okay, I get this. I get what you're saying. Now I understand, but I think I missed this last year, or I think something, didn't get filed. It's okay. No judgment. By the way, no one gives us a guidebook. There's no instruction manual. There's no like pamphlet someone gave you that explained that you're supposed to do this. We don't expect you to know that, but that's why we're here. That's why the professionals are here to help. Now, if you don't have an accountant on your side and you're a brand new business owner, this is what I'm trying to help with, is understand the responsibilities you still have, whether you've hired someone to do it or not. If you haven't hired someone to do it, then this responsibility rests in your hands. And I didn't know I was supposed to do this is not an okay excuse to the IRS. So this is me telling you, sharing the knowledge with you that you got to make sure you get this done. So, but if you don't, and again, no judgment, if you don't get this done, if you file 1099s late, you can face monetary penalties based on how late you are. If it's less than 30 days, you're looking at about $50 per form. This can go up to $550 per form if there's intentional disregard, meaning you know that you're supposed to file these and you just ignored it. And you're required to disclose on your tax return whether or not these were filed. So if you have an LLC, when we fill out your Schedule C, there's actually a little box there that says, did you file all the 1099s you're required to file? And we check yes or no. And we ask this as part of our organizers too. And our clients have to admit, yes, I filed them, or no, I didn't. And you're representing that officially. And if it turns out that you didn't file everything you should have, then you're going to face the penalties associated with that and have to go and file them. And beyond the monetary penalties, think about this. If you don't file the 1099s, then you could also be impacting someone else's tax filing, because what if you're hiring a contractor. Maybe they don't have the best bookkeeping, right? Maybe they don't have the best bookkeeping, and they are just going off of the 1099s to show what their income is because they make all of their income through, income sources that are generated with 1099. So like they're relying on you to give them that to show their income for whatever reason. Now, is that the right way? Maybe, maybe not. But think about this, the impact that you could have. If a contractor is not really keeping track of their income and using this 1099 to know what to report, then if you file this late and they get it after they've already filed their taxes, they now have to go back and amend their return and probably pay a tax preparer to do it all over again. So there could be other, impact, other effects of side effects of you being late. So keep that in mind. So what if you receive a 1099 and you realize that it's incorrect or it's missing information or something's off? It just doesn't look right. Here's my best advice. Do not call the IRS. Do not report anything to the IRS. Most likely, this can be handled by going directly to the party that prepared it, meaning the filer. So the person who hired you, the company that hired you. You want to make sure you go back to them and say, hey, I think something's wrong on my 1099. Actually, the filer can issue a correction. And what will happen is they'll just file a new 1099 with the corrected information that overrides the first one. So you're good. Just have to make sure that you are communicating as soon as you see something wrong. And that's why I think it's so important to open these reports, review them, especially as a business owner, review them to make sure you understand what's being reported in your name. Because if you disagree with it, the sooner the better for you to identify if you disagree with something and have it fixed. Then after it's been reported, it's been baked into your tax return, and then you figure out something was off, then there could be a whole set of other, effects, impact that that you have to correct going forward. So I would highly recommend that you inspect closely what you get in the mail come tax time, especially those 1099s, and make sure that they are accurate. So we've covered a lot today in terms of your responsibilities as a business owner and what to expect if you're on the receiving end of one of these reports. If you're unsure about whether someone should get a 1099 or if you should worry about sending them, don't worry, we got your back. We actually have a free Facebook group associated with this podcast. It's called Keep What You Earn, Financial Empowerment for Entrepreneurs, and it's totally free. You can go in there, ask questions, and interact with the over 700 other business owners that are in there and ask all of your questions. We are answering questions in there daily. So jump in there if you want to chat, if you want to just get more guidance or clarify anything from this episode. I hope you've learned something new today. Please share any takeaways with me on social media and be sure to hop into the Facebook group with extra questions. I'll see you next time.